When you finish this lesson, you should be able to explain the purpose of the Hazard Communication Program, identify where information can be found on hazardous chemicals in your workplace, and list at least 3 mandatory topics of worker training. A hazard communication program focuses on the chemical hazards in workplaces. Regardless of the number of employees, your employer is required to have a written program if any hazardous chemicals are used on the job site. This program trains all employees who use hazardous chemicals to safely handle these materials. No employee should use a hazardous chemical without training on the related safety practices. Commonly found hazardous materials include fuels such as gasoline and diesel, welding gases such as oxygen and acetylene, paints and coatings containing flammable solvents, silica contained in pulverized concrete dust, and foams and resins containing isocyanates, formaldehyde, and other activating compounds. The housing you are renovating may have other hazards in installed products, such as lead on painted surfaces and asbestos in building products. Some of these environmental hazards are discussed in the Environmental Hazards lesson of this curriculum. Each employer is required to keep hazardous chemical information on the work site and to make the information available to employees. The employer must have a written plan that lists all of the hazardous chemicals in use at the site and explains how employees will be informed of these risks. The employer must keep a material safety data sheet for each hazardous material and must allow you to access them. All hazardous materials and containers must be labeled with the name of the material and with the hazards of the material. A labeling system such as pictures of a hazard numbering system may be used in place of written terms, but the employer is responsible for explaining the labeling system in use to all affected employees. Your employer is responsible for training you to be aware of the presence of these hazardous materials or byproducts of chemicals, for example, wood dust and exhaust fumes, and to help you recognize when they are being released. Training should educate workers about basic elements of your employer's hazard communication program, who manages the program, how to gain access to material safety data sheets, the storage locations, identity, and health hazards of the chemicals found on your work site, how to lessen or prevent your exposure, any protective equipment you need to wear when handling the chemical, and steps you should take in case of a spill or release of the chemicals.